Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today I want to do a different type of salt mine video. This is a fun one because it's actually from a critical comment that went to Aggroed through the recent Discord town hall. And I think it's a pretty salty question, like around pretty much finger pointing at Splinterlands, like that they misunderstood the depth of this upcoming bear market, this bear market we're walking through, that they really missed the mark on planning and releasing X amount number of assets. And it's very critical, and Aggroed is not having it. I think it's a pretty spicy answer, especially from a man who is at that day, this day before he recorded this, had sat down with half of the staff that he was glad they were there. He was, he loved these people. I believe it when he says that. Obviously, some of you won't. And that's where the salt is, man. Cause like you guys are pointing fingers and Aggroed's not having it. Let's listen to it. And then I'm going to have some reactions afterwards. Okay, guys, before we do that, my name is Dwayne Cunningham. I cover Splinterlands all day, every day. And if that sounds interesting, stick around, stay tuned, like, and subscribe. Okay. So the town hall's up on YouTube and it's from there 16 hours ago as of the time of recording. And now Aggroed's about to read a question aloud and he's going to answer to it. Listen to it's a two-part question. So he's going to ask the first part. It's around, what did you guys do with the money from Chaos Legion and Rift Watchers? Like you just sold like tons of packs. Why aren't you rich enough is essentially the question. And Aggroed handles that, I think, with patience and grace. But there's a second part to the question that gets a little bit spicy. And he goes, the question is something like, won't you guys admit that you screwed up? Is pretty much the question. And Aggroed's not having that one. So let's get into it.
Can I firstly say sorry to hear about the reduction in staff and hope you'll be okay. Splinterlands has earned a lot of money through the sales of Chaos Legion, Rift Watcher, Tower Defense, and Genesis League Goals, and possibly Rooney. To be clear, we haven't made any money from Rift Watchers. That cost us money, and that all went to the DAO. I understand it's a bear market. Can you admit you overstretched, lost the direction of the game, and also admit land should have been your sole focus? No, land was not our sole focus. We purposely pushed back land so that we could get SPS out. And SPS has been a killer addition to this game, and don't feel like the slightest bit bad for that. Like I said, I was planning on growing, even a little bit back, rather than cutting. And I think that, we have, you have to take your shot. You have to be in a position to grow. You have to be in a position to make new product. Even now we are still doing that. We are leaving ourselves in the position to get multiple products out the door. And that includes the things that we're already working on, like land. I know it can be frustrating to think that we never work on land, but as we go through these, there's a bunch of prerequisites and we've actually already been shipping them. Go log into Splinterlands right now, and the login looks different. That's part of the tech modernization, which was one of the prereqs to get the non-card market out. That should be next. And then hopefully by the end of the year, we have land out, or at least the first part of that. So, it's erroneous to think that we're not working on land. We've been doing that this whole time. We have 17 devs. It's enough for maybe like 9 separate projects going at the same time. And we would be foolish not to be working on more than one thing at once. So, I think, part of this is that this is a black swan event, right? Black swan, there's white rhinos where you can see them in their population decaying for decades, and it's sad, but nobody notices or cares. And then you have black swans, which are kind of like, oh shit moments. And I think FTX is much closer to an oh shit moment than it is to a gray elephant where we've known forever and just ignored it. Like I said, October was one of the strongest revenue months that we had since the beginning of the year. So things look to be turning around, and this is a departure from that. So I think we were appropriately stretched, and now, given the current market conditions, we have to retract some.
So is it just me, or do you feel like he was getting spicy there? I think first of all, the questioner is absolutely salty. How did he phrase it? It's like, are you willing to now admit you screwed up? He didn't use the word screw up. He said, that you lost track of yourselves or something like that. I wish I had it written out in front of me, but the tone was very like, you guys screwed up, you messed up, you should have known better. We've been telling you. It was just so finger pointing, finger wagging. And frankly, I thought Aggroed handled it with grace, but definitely you can feel the frustration there. And I think understandably, because like I said at the beginning here, he had to fire people that he likes and that he was glad to have on this team, that he felt were handpicked to really grow this game, which he loves. And then for this moment to happen with kind of the broader cryptocurrency market and Bitcoin going from 20,000 to 16 and Ethereum going from 1,600 to 1,200, the ramifications financially on a company like Splinterlands that holds 30% of their assets in Bitcoin and Ethereum, based on this town hall, they said that they're huge. Not to mention the fact that the FTX thing and the potential for really like a cascading failure, which is possible. It is possible that one company leads to another. BlockFi was questionable, Genesis was questionable. Different possible companies could be, different dominoes could fall as a result of what happened with FTX. And if so, where does that bring things like Bitcoin and Ethereum? And what does that do to the forecast of Splinterlands? And so these layoffs and these changes are not, that's where he gets into the conversation around the white rhino. He's like, it's not as if that thing was charging us and we should have seen this coming. It's like FTX was something in and of itself totally, you couldn't have predicted that FTX was going to fail in that way. And at that time, and if you could, you should be a filthy rich billionaire, because you're calling tops and you're calling bottoms better than most. And I think Aggroed's right to kind of rear up a little bit on that one. But I definitely felt there's some spice in there. And I think he goes, not only, the question was like, you messed up, you lost track of what was important. Land was key. You didn't get it out. And I feel like that is sentence 2 is so, absolutely missing the mark too, on what they've been doing, because if you really been paying attention, that land required the non-card market, which has been this whole thing of like, of updating the system in the background in ways that are not necessarily tangible to us, the gamer, but had to happen in order for the cards to be released, the land to be divisible, to be sellable, and all of that other stuff to be created on and make land possible. And we've heard this for months and months and months, and everyone, every now and then there's still a comment that says like, when land, as if it's not already happening, as if it's not already kind of unfolding in front of us. And he said in there, look, you've seen the change in the logins, and that's part of it. And then I think he drove one final point home, I want to say, and he said it right in the middle. He was talking about, look, we didn't make a mistake in how we handled land. We've been handling land. I said that. But 2, we chose to focus on getting SPS out and making that what it is now. We're getting SPS rewards for playing the game. You were never getting that. The SPS rewards are bigger than the DEC rewards used to be. That was a payment, a betterment to the players of the game. That's something that we should be grateful for. And there isn't any sort of sense of gratitude in that. It's like finger pointing, look, you missed the mark. If you've only focused in on land like you should have, like we all told you was the tone, then we would have been able to, I guess, avoid this. And I think, like I say, Aggroed was salty. Aggroed was spicy because of I think he felt they took their shot with SPS. They felt SPS was bigger and more important. And I think to some extent, that's 100% true. Now, land is so important too. And I think that's been unfolding. So it's like, you wanted land, we're working on land, but we also gave you this massive thing, SPS. And we believe that that was the bigger thing that we had to do. And now it has been massive, and it's working in rank rewards, and it's working in brawls, and it's working in tournaments. It's this massive thing. It's working in governance now. It's working, validator nodes are getting going. And that's another part of the governance side that is connected to the SPS. So they've done so much. And like he said, they were growing until recently. In October, they had their best month of the year. And they wouldn't have felt in that moment that they needed to do what they're doing now. But after this Black Swan event, they felt that this made the most sense to make sure there was security and long-term sustainability. So, I mean, one thing I want to say for sure before I leave it, though, is I want to say I don't know who asked the question. I didn't read it myself. It's possible that Aggroed read it in some way that was kind of misleading. Maybe Aggroed was feeling upset because I felt a little spice in there. And maybe he didn't give the proper kind of context or connotation intended by the writer of that question. But if that was accurately stated, I do think it was unfair to suggest that the team has missed the mark here, whether they've got lost in the weeds or whatever negative kind of connotation that was wrapped up in that question. I do feel, like Aggroed outlined, they've taken their shots, they aimed big, they did what made a lot of sense. And now, because of a massive and unforeseeable event, they're pulling back. And yet, progress is still being assured, aimed at, and moved forward. So I thought that was interesting. I thought it was worth doing its own kind of salt video. You guys know we do this every now and then where there's a salty comment and sometimes a spicy answer. Man, this moment and the tension around this is felt by players and creators of Splinterlands. So I get the tone of the question, but I also feel the passion, and I get the passion and response that Aggroed shared there. So guys, thanks a lot for your time and attention. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have an amazing day. God bless.